Hello everyone. We are going to continue our discussion about functions today. In last lecture we talked about how can we call functions, and we know there are a lot of built-in functions like the print or type or len for length. Well, those are all the built-in functions we are able to call without defining them by ourselves. And actually, we do have to call those functions to get a lot of things done. And in addition, we also talk about how we can define a function. So those are the topics for last lecture. And today we are going to introduce two important concepts about using functions, not in Python, but in a lot of other programming languages too. And their abstractions and decomposition. And we will talk more about the namespace. And there are some interesting rules about namespace, and sometimes it can be confusing too. The first thing, for the function, we know a function is a reusable piece of code. It can be a few lines, or a function can be very long. But the goal is that we want to reuse that piece of the code without copy and paste this piece of code to many different places. And for this piece of code, it can take some of the input, and those are the input arguments. And this piece of code will also produce a final output, and that is the return value. And the next part, we want to ask is, why do we want to use functions? The number one reason should be code reuse. We want to reuse some of the code we have already written. So let me write you some code, for example. Say, let me create another file, and I'm going to take out everything here. Say if I want to get a coin toss, so I want to do the import random, and then I can do a toss equals random.randint, and then between 0 and 1, and after that I do a if toss equals 1, and then I do a print head, and otherwise toss, and otherwise else print tail. Okay, so this is a code I can do to simulate one coin toss. So if I run that, I got a head, I run this again, I got a tail, run this again, got a tail. Okay, for one simulation, there's nothing wrong with that. But the reason that I want to make that into a function is, how about I want to do a simulation of a total of 3 coin tosses? Okay, so to toss a coin 3 times, that should be 3 independent coin tosses. So I have to copy this part of the code for 3 times. So this is for one toss, another toss, and then the last toss. Okay, if I run this, and then I will get 3 tails. I'm really lucky this time. Let me run this again. Oh, tail, head, head. Okay, run this again. I'm just trying to make sure that those 3 are independent tosses. Okay, so the problem is, you see, now I have copied the same piece of code for 3 times, and this is ugly. The reason is, say, I want to name it something else. So if I want to name it up or down, okay, so this is just a simple naming change. But I have to make this kind of changes for 3 times. That's not so cool, right? So I'm going to do a revert. Okay, and then I'm gonna make it into a function. So df coin toss, and then colon, right? And do we need parameters? Probably no. So it will be a empty pair of the parentheses. And then I'm gonna indent everything. And then, I'm gonna keep the print here. So I'm not doing a return. So this means by default, a return is a none. And then if we want to simulate 3 coin tosses, and then instead of copying the piece of the code for 3 times, I'm gonna just do 3 function calls like this. So, well, I can still do the same thing, but in this case, if later I want to do a naming change, for example, say up and down, can I do that? Of course. And the cool thing is I only have to do this kind of change only once, right? So this is the point of the code reuse. I want to reuse one piece of the code, but I don't want to copy and paste the same piece of code for multiple times. Okay, so let's come back. So the next part is the procedure decomposition. Well, this is a little bit complicated. Well, usually in a larger project and we have multiple steps. For example, we want to display a user interface to people. And after that, I want to take some of the user input. And after that, I may want to process the data. And after processing the data, I may even request other data from another server. And after the data is retrieved back, and then I do further data processing, eventually I want to present the result to the user. So in this process, there are many steps. So if you just write a big chunk of the pipeline of code, is that okay? Well, yeah, that's okay. But it could be hard for other people to understand your code. Or if you just put the code there for 1 month or half a year, and then later you come back, you want to maintain or change the code a little bit, and you will find the code is really hard to follow. So how can we do that better? Well, the answer is we want to break the process into a few smaller pieces.